On the line right now, Senator Ben Cardin, Democrat from Maryland, sits on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, how are you this morning?
Well, it's good to be with you. Thank you.
There's a lot of movement in the last 24 hours, and it all started when the Secretary of State was asked a question yesterday. Here it is.
Is there anything at this point that his government could do or offer that would stop an attack?
Sure, he could turn over every single bit of his chemical weapons to the international community in the next week. Turn it over, all of it, without delay, and allow a full and total accounting for that. But he isn't about to do it. And
well, that was early in the day, and they spent about half the day at the State Department trying to walk that back until late in the afternoon when apparently the Russians said, we're on board. Syria says, well, maybe we could go along with that. And the president seemed to be willing to let this diplomatic effort move forward. What's going on here, Senator? Where is this thing?
Well, the objective of the U.S. effort has always been to deter and to degrade Syria's ability to use chemical weapons. That's our purpose for considering military operations. We believe the international community needs to respond. If there really is a serious effort to turn over their chemical weapons to international control, we've achieved our objective. But I think all of us are a bit suspicious. We always are suspicious about Russia. They have not been helpful at all to the United States, particularly in the last couple of months. And we've seen the efforts made to try to delay and build up weapons of mass destruction by these types of ploys in the past. So I think we're all very suspicious as to the sincerity of Syria and Russia.
Well,
but that if, in fact, this were to happen, we would achieve our objective, and therefore we would not need to respond with military action.
All right. Well, just in the last few seconds, the Associated Press is now reporting that Syria has accepted the Russian proposal to surrender control over its chemical weapons. But Senator, the president was bound and determined to take this to Congress. I noticed yesterday that Harry Reid decided not to go forward with debate. So is everything on Capitol Hill pretty much on hold? And if so, then why does the president need to address the nation tonight?
No, I don't think things are on hold at all. The president will be on Capitol Hill today. He'll be speaking to all of the senators, has two meetings with Democratic senators and Republican senators. He's been meeting one-on-one with members of Congress, had security briefings. He'll address the American people tonight. I think what Senator Reid was saying is that the president should have the opportunity to talk with us before we have a vote. And quite frankly, we're hopeful that we're not going to need the procedural vote that was scheduled for Wednesday, that we will be able to get the debate on the floor of the Senate and action as early as this week. So, no, it's not on hold. There are two tracks going forward. One, to authorize the use of force. The other, the diplomatic effort, that if military can be avoided, if Syria, in fact, turns over its chemical weapons to the international community.
Senator Ben Cardin is our guest. Of course, he's a senator from the state of Maryland. And, Senator, you're on the Foreign Relations Committee, and I want to address what the Secretary of State said yesterday. Really two remarkable statements. The first was this, what seemed to be an offhand remark, that, as Brian said, the State Department tried to walk back this idea that, sure, we can avoid a military strike if Syria turns over all their weapons. During your on-the-record and behind-closed-doors briefings with the Secretary of State over the last week and a half, was that ever brought up?
No, I can't say that it was. I don't think there was a belief that Syria would turn over chemical weapons, particularly since they were denying that they had used chemical weapons. The evidence is very clear that they did, in fact, use chemical weapons. But let me repeat that the objective has always been to degrade and to deter Syria from using chemical weapons. Mm-hmm. So some of the discussion took place as to how we can control the chemical weapons. I don't believe we thought it was a viable option that Syria would turn over the chemical weapons to international community.
Right.
Quite frankly, we're still not clear that of their intentions here. So I would not get overly optimistic on this.
You're pretty skeptical, it sounds. Yeah.
I am very skeptical. We've seen this before. We've seen it in Iran where they said they would let inspectors in. They used it to delay, and they continued to develop their nuclear capacity. Syria has a huge amount of chemical weapons. In contravention to the international treaties, they've used it, and they would also have to agree not to produce any further chemical weapons and to have international inspectors. It's hard to comprehend the Assad regime agreeing to all that.
Senator Cardin, another thing that the Secretary said yesterday, which raised a lot of eyebrows, which was he characterized the pending military strike as, and I'm quoting him, unbelievably small. Now, when you voted to authorize the military strike at the Foreign Relations Committee, was your understanding that it would be unbelievably small?
Well, we understand the mission is limited, and by that we mean it's limited solely to the ability to use chemical weapons. It is not aimed at taking side.
But you wouldn't subscribe to that terminology, though.
I would say whenever military action is used, it is the military has a specific objective, and no, I would have used different words than that.
All right, let me just make sure I got this right. So the president draws a line, a red line, and then the Syrians cross it, and then he says, all right, we're not going to put up with that, so we're going to launch some missiles at you. Then he finds out that it's unpopular, and he says, well, maybe we should let Congress to debate this. And Congress debates is getting ready to have a big debate and a big speech and all of this kind of stuff. And amidst all that, the Secretary of State throws out sort of this oddball idea. The Russians seize upon it, and now it looks like the diplomatic effort will run to ground for a while. It's like when you look at this thing, it seems that it's foreign policy that's just all over the map. Doesn't it look rather amateurish?
Well, first, I agree with the president. It wasn't the president drawing a red line. The international community is drawing this line. Since the end of World War I, Syria, the United States, and almost all of the civilized world has been party to a treaty that bans the use of chemical weapons. So this is an international.
But is this any way to conduct foreign policy the way it's gone?
Well, I believe the president believes in doing things in a more open, transparent manner. The War Powers resolution does bring Congress into play, that we are the ones responsible for authorizing the use of force when time permits Congress to act. So I think the president feels pretty strongly that the Constitution requires Congress to be involved in this debate, that having an open debate in this country is a healthy thing. That's what democracy is about.
Well,
I would not confuse that at all with the president's resolve that you cannot allow the use of chemical weapons to go unchallenged. So it's clear to me that action will be taken and that Syria will be challenged on the use of chemical weapons. And yes, if they diplomatically agree to give up their chemical weapons,
you're on board. All right.
We'll accept that.
Senator, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it. Hope you'll come back.
Absolutely. Good